Hello and welcome to the latest Barb briefing. I'm Luca Vannini, Head of Campaign Audiences at Barb, and it's great to see so many of you have signed up for today's event. Most of today's session is pre-recorded, but we'll take questions at the end, so please do send yours in through the Q&A function as we go along. You might remember that our previous event in June, we introduced the concept of the media measurement loop, the virtuous circle of campaign optimization that all advertisers and media agencies aim for. Our insight into viewing behavior supports strategic planning, while our tools, Advanced Campaign Hub and C-Flight, help with campaign implementation and reporting. And our exposure metrics remain a vital input into measuring outcomes and effectiveness. Over the summer, we've been busy enhancing how Barb data can support better business decisions at every stage of the measurement loop. And today, in the next episode, we'll share what's new. In late July, we began reporting TV set viewing to YouTube channels, making Barb the first TV joint industry currency in the world to do so. This builds on our established reporting of YouTube content from TV companies, as well as service-level audiences for YouTube. And now, with viewing to 200 of the most watched YouTube channels added into our regular reporting, we're providing fresh insight at the channel allocation stage of the loop. Today, we'll share the first 7 weeks of viewing data for those channels and explore what the data tell us about what people in the UK are watching on YouTube by their TV set. But YouTube reporting isn't the only development. We've also made progress in other areas of our program, covering all stages of the loop. At the heart of this virtuous cycle of optimization is our new end-to-end reporting system, Barb Ads Hub. We plan to launch Barb Ads Hub early next year, following a thorough testing program with clients this autumn. Today, we'll talk through its main features and give you a first look how the interface is shaping up. But before that, let's start with YouTube. Doug, over to you.
Thanks, Luca, and good morning, everyone. I'm Doug Whelpdale, Head of Insight at Barb. As Luca said, please use the Q&A function to submit questions for the live Q&A at the end. I have several topics to cover today. I'll start out with 5 headline stats from our YouTube channel measurement, as I know it's hard to wait for the good stuff. I'll then give some context before moving on to what we've uncovered about YouTube viewing since we began measuring it at a service level in late 2021. I'll then briefly recap why and how we started to measure content for 200 of the most watched YouTube channels, before digging into 5 of our learnings from the data. So let's look at the headlines. Firstly, the overall YouTube TV set reach for the final week of August this year was just short of 22 million people aged 4+. Significant for sure, but not quite as large as the reach to BBC One, ITV1 or Netflix for the same week on a TV set. The 200 YouTube channels that we measure reached just over 7 million people in the same week. As these are 200 of the biggest channels, this implies a long tail of channels that are generating much of YouTube's reach. The biggest channel in terms of reach? Well, that was the Peppa Pig official channel with a reach of just under 1 million people aged 4+ for the week ending August 31st. And the largest audience to an individual video during this week? That's to the ending scene of Netflix film K-pop Demon Hunters, as shown on the Joe Blow animated videos channel. Its audience of 432,000 was about the same as an episode of Chicago Fire on Sky witnessed that week. And finally, let's take a very top-line look at our YouTube TV set audience for that week. As you might expect, they are young. 68% of viewing time is from under 35s, with an almost 50-50 split of that time between kids aged under 16 and young adults aged 16 to 34. So, having whet your appetite, let's take a step back and look at the context. YouTube is really big, isn't it? We know it's big. But exactly how do we know? Well, Barb data already show that 96% of under 55s have used the service for at least 3 consecutive minutes while at home this year. And given the audience I'm talking to, it is vanishingly unlikely that you yourself have not used it. More relevantly perhaps, advertisers and agencies know how much they are spending with YouTube, but this lacks context. Google itself provides some context by publishing this financial information, which shows the impressive growth and scale of YouTube ad revenues. These have increased 4.5-fold since 2017 to reach a substantial $36 billion, but these are global figures. Just like these subscriber and view figures for Mr. Beast. They are undoubtedly impressive, but they don't reveal his audience in the UK. not to mention the fact that the duration threshold for a view to be counted on YouTube is uncertain and maybe just a few seconds. So, having measured YouTube at a service level since 2021, the industry asked us to go further and reveal the content that the audiences are watching on YouTube in the UK. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. First, let's look at what we've learned in more than 3.5 years measuring YouTube at a service level. Data here show clear growth in the amount of time that the UK population is spending with video sharing services, of which YouTube is a significant part. The share of total identified viewing for these services has risen from 20% in August 2022 to 24% in August this year. These data are for 4 screens. If we break out video sharing viewing on the TV set, we see growth from 4% in August 2022 to 9% in August this year. And we can see that YouTube's share of viewing on the TV set is clearly the driver for video sharing overall. If we move on to look at the split of devices that people use to watch YouTube at home, we see that the TV set has become the leading device. With this shift, we might wonder if Barb data show that YouTube viewing is in any way similar to that for TV companies. One way to investigate this is to split viewing into 4 segments known as quartiles. These group heavy and light viewers together. If we do this for YouTube, we can see the heaviest viewers are responsible for the most viewing time. This is the same for TV company channels. However, there is a difference. Whereas 91% of viewing time is from heavy viewers for YouTube on a TV set, that figure is around 78% for commercial TV companies like ITV or Channel 4. So heavy viewers are important to both, but they are more important to YouTube. This difference is reinforced when we look at how YouTube is used through the day compared to TV companies and streamers. I showed these charts at our event in June, but it's worth reiterating that we see a significant evening peak in viewing for TV companies and streamers that isn't present for YouTube. 3 p.m. is a key point for an uptick in viewing time with YouTube at home, but that viewing is not significantly higher at 9 p.m. than at 6 p.m. This is also where we start to see the importance of children to YouTube. Their in-home viewing jumps notably at the end of the school day. If we take the share of YouTube viewing for each age band and index it against the share of population, we again see how disproportionately important young viewers are for YouTube on a TV set. Children accounted for 27% of viewing time to YouTube on a TV set in Q2 this year, but they are only 15% of the UK population aged 4+, a strong over-index of 83. 16 to 55-year-olds are much closer to average, while those aged 55+ are perhaps unsurprisingly under-indexing. If we return to the devices being used to watch YouTube and break out kids aged 4 to 10, we see a marked shift in the share taken by each screen. Whereas 3 years ago we saw an almost equal share of viewing on TV sets and tablets, TV sets now account for the majority of kids' in-home YouTube viewing. Time with tablets has reduced significantly, while time on smartphones and PCs has also dropped. These changes in share are matched in absolute volume terms. Minutes spent viewing YouTube on PCs is down 62% for under 11s, while time on tablets is down 16% and on smartphones down 12%. Minutes spent viewing YouTube on a TV set are up 65% for this age group and have doubled for older kids aged 11 to 15. Our hypothesis is that parents may be more comfortable for their kids to watch YouTube on the TV set, as this is a communal screen, and so it's easier to monitor what their kids are watching. While everything we've discussed in this section so far has been at a service level, we've been able to identify some of the content that viewers watch via YouTube already. For Sky News' coverage of President Trump's inauguration earlier this year, we know that nearly 1 in 5 of the 330,000 viewers from 5 to 6 p.m. watched via YouTube. Our high-quality, people-based panel also shows us that of those, almost 2 in 5 were watching with someone else in the room. Naturally, the industry was keen for us to extend our measurement of the content viewed on YouTube in the UK. We recognise, though, that measuring all YouTube content viewed is an almost impossible task. So we carried out an industry consultation to help us prioritise what we should measure. Importantly, we got a broad set of responses from broadcasters, platforms, advertisers and agencies, the buy and sell sides. We also ensured that the consultation was carried out by an independent voice, Paul Evans, the former global head of media at Vodafone. The feedback guided our approach to measuring content on YouTube. 3 priorities emerged. Firstly, viewing behaviour isn't constrained by devices or platforms, so we need audience-centric measurement that transcends the business models of content providers. Buyers want transparency on editorial content and contextual measures of quality. This need isn't new and is enshrined in the WFA's framework for cross-media measurement. People want to know the quality of what they are buying so that they can apply value judgments. It's true of media advertising in the same way it's true of buying a house. How many of us would buy a property if all we knew that it was 4 bedrooms somewhere in Greater London? That house could be worth a few £100,000 or a few £1,000,000. And to enable the assessment of campaign effectiveness, there's a need for comparable impact data across all brand-safe content. False equivalence, by which I mean words like reach and exposure, or impact and impression, that look and sound the same while having different meanings, is a deterrent to the assessment of effective investment in media advertising. That is the why of why and how we went further. I won't go into detail on the how that our COO Caroline Baxter explained at our briefing in June, but in brief, we are using audio matching content recognition, or ACR, to recognise individual videos. This is the same technique that we use to measure viewing of content on TV companies' channels and streaming services. Our use of ACR does mean that our measurement of YouTube at a content level is based on TV set viewing. If you have specific questions on this, please put them in the Q&A and we'll answer them during the live part of today's session. Caroline also described how we worked with an independent company, CViews, to select the 200 YouTube channels we are measuring. One point that is worth reiterating is that this is 200 of the most watched channels, not the top 200 channels. TV companies that use YouTube to distribute their content are also already covered in our existing measurement, which is why they don't feature more prominently in our list. But we do include some channels dedicated to individual shows like the BBC's Antiques Roadshow. The point I will elaborate on a little more is how we're ensuring videos are brand safe. We are again working with CViews. They have defined an ongoing process that analyses content based on audio, visual and thematic criteria. Barb and CViews will work together to flag inappropriate videos. Then, depending on the nature and frequency of a channel's transgressions, a channel may be removed from monitoring. Building on this, an ongoing audit of the 200 channels draws on the recently published ISBAR Responsible Media Guide to ensure that the channels continue to meet the standards expected by advertisers. So, what have we learnt from our first few weeks measuring these channels? Well, we've already seen what an important audience kids are for YouTube at a service level, and that remains the case when we are analysing the 200 channels that we are measuring at a content level. For the week ending August 31st, 12 of the top 20 YouTube channels highlighted in light green here are kids focused. And in each of the 7 weeks to this week, between 12 and 14 channels of the top 20 were aimed at a young audience. Indeed, many are for the even younger kids that we saw earlier are increasing their YouTube time on a TV set. Here I've highlighted 3 with orange text: Peppa Pig, Moonbug Kids and Baby Shark. As a parent of young children myself, I know that my kids are familiar with their work. Taking the 200 YouTube channels as a whole, they reached 1.9 million kids on average each week. That's 1 in 5 children in the UK. And across all 7 weeks, nearly half of kids were reached by those channels. Finally, we see that 27% of the weekly reach achieved by these 200 channels comes from kids. This is the same as the proportion of all YouTube viewing time from kids, suggesting that our selected channels represent a reasonable cross-section of viewing on the platform. The top channel for each of the first 7 weeks was the Peppa Pig official channel, again reinforcing the importance of young viewers. The channel's reach of just under 1 million compares favourably to Peppa's other TV homes in the UK. For the final week of August, Peppa on Channel 5 reached just under 700,000 viewers, while her adventures attracted over 200,000 viewers on Netflix. What you will also notice here is an increase in the channel's reach over the weeks. While it's early days, this may indicate the importance of archive content. We began creating references for the Peppa Pig official YouTube channel in April of this year, and had recorded viewing to 70 videos by the end of August. There are 8,500 videos on the channel, so we are at the very start of anything approaching an archive. But the fact that we see reach building over time may hint that a channel's back catalogue is important in building reach. It's also possible that this was a function of the summer holidays. To know for sure, we'll need more data. Now, no discussion of YouTube content would be complete without mentioning Mr. Beast. In contrast to Pepper, the data we've collected so far for the Mr. Beast channel, which in this chart does go back into data from our test phase, demonstrates the importance of new content releases. The reach of the channel as a whole clearly increases when new content is released, and while channel reach dips when no new content is available, it is nevertheless impressive that reach remains as high as it does with just one new video every 2 weeks. The figures themselves, though, are revealing. Mr. Beast is often referred to as a global phenomenon. His channel had 433 million global subscribers on September 9th this year, a figure that had grown by 4 million compared to just 7 days earlier. Each video on the Mr. Beast channel shows views in the tens, if not hundreds of millions on YouTube. These are inescapably impressive figures, but as I mentioned earlier, they lack local context, and they lack transparency in the methodology that creates them. Here we see channel reach of just over 300,000 at its peak, or just under 1.2 million across the first 7 weeks. The definition of reach here, 3 continuous minutes of viewing, is also transparent and set at an industry-agreed standard level. We must remember that this reach is for TV set viewing only, but we've seen how important TV set viewing is to YouTube. We should also bear in mind that our back catalogue of channel content is still building, but if we examine one video from Mr. Beast, we get a hint that archive viewing may not be equally vital for all channels. Weekly reach to the video I Survived 100 Hours in an Ancient Temple peaks immediately after release on May 10th. It then drops to almost zero for 5 weeks before it picks up again in late July as schools break up for summer. Again, time will tell how important archives are, but these early data suggest that they may not be equally important for all channels. It's also useful to know that a video that was labelled as having 113 million views by September 9th reached just under 500,000 people on the UK TV sets over the same period. It's human nature to be impressed by a big number and assume that a good proportion of that viewing is in the UK. After all, we are constantly hearing about the scale of various YouTube creators, although usually without explicit mention of the fact that the scale is global, or an open explanation of how that scale is calculated. This is why independent and transparent measurement of these services matters to our industry. That includes those who are commissioning and producing programs for TV companies and streamers. Several YouTube creators now have shows on streaming platforms, and our data allow us to see how their performance on these streamers compares with their performance on YouTube. We'll stick with Mr. Beast for our first example. Amazon Prime Video commissioned Mr. Beast to produce his Beast Games show in 2024, with the final episode released in February of this year in the UK. That final episode drew an audience almost 5 times the size of the largest audience to an individual video on the Mr. Beast YouTube channel that we have measured so far. In both cases, these are 7-day audience figures. We should also consider content length. The Beast Games episode was 57 minutes long compared to 20 minutes for the YouTube channel video. So in terms of minutes watched, viewers spent more than 40 times longer with the final episode of Beast Games than they did with the YouTube video. Our second example considers Ms. Rachel. Her YouTube channel contains more than 100 toddler learning videos, which have been taken more directly from YouTube to Netflix, with the 2 content items here of an almost identical length. Still, we see audiences on Netflix at around 6 times those on YouTube. As the move from YouTube creator to streamer or TV channel star is unlikely to stop anytime soon, our data should prove useful to producers scouting for talent, and perhaps even for talent looking to be scouted. For my final slide, I want to place the top YouTube channels in context with viewing to TV company channels on YouTube. Much has been written about ITV's decision to make content available via YouTube, and while still a small part of the channel's overall reach, we see that viewing to ITV1 content on YouTube would have ranked it 3rd amongst our top 200 channels in the last week of August. Similarly, content from Sky Sports and the ability to watch Sky News and GB News live via YouTube sees them rank in the top 10. But what of our top ranked YouTube channel, the Peppa Pig official channel? If we were to place its reach against all other Barb measured channels and services for the week ending August 31st, it would come in just ahead of the 72nd ranked channel, True Crime Extra, which had a very slightly lower weekly reach of 950,000. Joe Blow Animated Videos, 10th in the table here, would come in just ahead of Clubland TV, which ranked 124th in that same list. So, to summarise our 5 learnings, YouTube is most certainly big, but it is very big for kids at both a service and channel level. We see that new content drives reach, and it may be that we see archive content is not universally important. As time moves on, we'll have more data to explore that. Those creators who are also making their content for or available on streaming services are achieving bigger TV set audiences via the streamers than YouTube. And finally, while some of our measured YouTube channels are achieving good reach, the most successful sit outside of the top 50 channels and services that Barb measures, while the majority sit outside of the top 100. Many thanks for listening. I'll now hand you back to Luca to give you a first look at Barb Ads Hub.
Thanks, Doug. Let's now look at the evolution of our campaign reporting services, and in particular, how Barb Ads Hub will become the single place where buyers and sellers can access Barb campaign analysis and reporting from next January. Since we embarked on this project, we've been guided by the virtuous cycle of campaign optimization that advertisers and agencies aim for, a loop where the learnings from your last campaign feed directly into the planning of your next one. With this principle in mind, when C-Flight came under Barb's governance in 2024, we refined our planning tool to ensure the post-campaign validation aligned with pre-campaign forecasting. And the next logical step was to create a single analytic system offering one point of access for both forecasting and reporting campaign performance. At the start of this year, we appointed RSMB to build Barb Ads Hub. As the architect of the methodologies behind both Advanced Campaign Hub and C-Flight, RSMB brings deep understanding of our planning and reporting requirements, making them ideally placed to deliver this project. And by bringing methodology, development and reporting under one roof, we're streamlining processes and cutting implementation and testing lead times in half, accelerating time to market for future developments. The Barb Ads Hub will feature a modern, intuitive interface designed without the constraints of legacy third-party systems. It will allow users to run standalone and customized reports with advanced visualization features. It will also support automated requests via API for integration with proprietary tools. And so, where are we today? We've already built the infrastructure to ingest and process Barb data alongside the first-party data supplied by the broadcasters. Behind the scenes, we're finalizing the pre-campaign planning optimizer, while the C-Flyer request system is currently being tested with the TV sales houses. At the same time, we're focused on designing the user interface to make it as intuitive and user-friendly as possible. Here is how it looks right now, as we're about to get our hands on it. User testing is scheduled to begin in late October with representatives from broadcasters, media agencies, and advertisers. Through a stage approach, we'll be assessing all components of Barb Ads Hub right through to launch in January. As we build the new system, we're also preparing upgrades to C-Flight. It will soon be possible to run analysis for audiences that have never been available before. And in addition to new age brackets, we'll be reinstating analysis for house-person audiences using improved modeling based on broadcaster classifications. This means users will be able to examine bot delivery and targeting for one of the most used TV trading audiences. The new system will also allow C-Fly results to be broken down by sales house, mirroring functionality already available in our planning tool, where users can isolate the contribution of each provider. And it will support analysis of campaigns that run solely on VOD services. While C-Flight already covers the vast majority of UK broadcaster advertising, we're closing the remaining gaps by adding platforms such as STV Player and TNT Sports. and we're progressing conversation with the streamers about joining C-Flight on the same terms as existing participants. Thanks to our collaboration with streaming services, we've been able to independently estimate the number of households with ad-tier subscription to Disney+, Netflix and Prime Video on the Barb panel. These figures are already part of Barb's daily reporting, and they've also enabled us to include these services in our pre-campaign planning tool, alongside linear channels and broadcaster VOD services. Looking ahead, their participation in C-Flight will give buyers a truly comprehensive view of campaign performance across the all AV market, including all services that actively collaborate with Barb. We expect to include at least 2 US VOD services in the first half of 2026. Barb Ads Hub represents a significant step forward in the evolution of our campaign reporting services. It's not only a new home for our existing tools with extended coverage, but also an enabler of innovation in how users can access and use Barb data. Audience measurement data has long been a critical input for demonstrating campaign effectiveness, but it hasn't always been easy to gather in the right format. With the rise of marketing mix modeling solutions, and following discussions with broadcasters and agencies, we've been developing a new MMM data pack. This will be available through Ads Hub in an automated way, giving users easy access to campaign data for modeling. And we won't stop there. Barb Ads Hub provides a flexible platform for future innovation and continuous evolution, ensuring our exposure metrics remain a vital input into understanding the outcomes and effectiveness of TV advertising. Before I wrap up, a quick note about what's next. Please do join the live Q&A today and share your questions with us. And if you'd like to dive deeper, we'll also be taking this briefing on the road, visiting companies to walk teams through our innovation program in person. If that sounds of interest, please email Doug or me to arrange a session. Thanks for listening. Now back to the team live in the studio for your questions.